Hi everyone, this is Stephen from A Crafty Situation in Mosaic Moments, and welcome to our Volume Facebook Live presentation where we're going to be working with our 30 degrees die. I'm so excited that you joined us today. What we're going to do is in just about 10 seconds, I'm going to point my camera downwards and we're going to get started with our project. I promise it's going to be a very busy half an hour, but it's going to produce a very nice page. I do have Beth available in our chat today, so as we're going through our presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to chat with us and we will hopefully be able to answer them. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so everybody should be able to see my work surface now, and this is the 30 degrees 4x6 die that we're going to be working with today, and this is what our final page is going to look like. Now, when I look at this page, my mind goes wow between the colors and the photos and how the photos are placed on the page. And you have to remember, if your audience isn't a paper crafter, they're going to be just simply amazed by how you got everything on this page. The photos cut perfectly, the black outlines, everything. They never knew that you worked with a die and a die machine to produce this. What we're going to do during the course of the presentation today is I'm going to actually work you through a simple three-step process in order to make this page. What we're going to primarily focus on is this rectangle here in the top left-hand corner. Because of time constraints of only having about 30 minutes, we're not going to be able to cut every single piece for this whole page, but I promise you that if you follow this three-step approach that I'm going to do for this top left corner, you're going to be able to duplicate it for the bottom left, the top right, and the bottom right, and be able to finish your page off. If you're brand new to Mosaic Moments, you're going to see in your class pack that we have 2 sheets of ivory grid paper. It's got a grid printed on the front and it's blank on the back. We're going to be working with this grid paper. It's the standard 12 by 12 scrapbook size, and all of the samples that you see, including my samples here today, have this grid paper behind it. What we're going to do is, as we cut elements and we work on lining them up to the grid, your goal is going to be to just cover these grid lines without going over. So you don't want to see the grid lines, but you don't want to go too far over, because your end goal is to be able to have everything on the page that looks like this, where it's lined up beautifully, horizontally and vertically, and it's got that nice even 1/8 of an inch spacing in between. So using that grid paper, we're going to be able to do that. We're also going to be working with 2 types of adhesive. We're going to be working with our repositionable adhesive, and we're also going to be working with our sticky specs. Everybody received a package of sticky specs in their class pack. What I would recommend that you do is I would recommend that you possibly cut it in half. It'll make it a little bit easier to work with. And then what you're going to see is that I have one of the sides of my sticky specs stapled. And I have a little guide handle here on one of the other sides. And you're going to see why I did that when I cut my 30 degrees outline and put it onto my sticky specs. So I'll explain that more in just a second, but I wanted to show you that this is something that I added after it came out of the manufacturer's packaging, which was staples and then a little guide handle for my finger. All right, the repositionable adhesive you're going to use, this is from Scrapbook Adhesive by 3L, and you're going to use that to place your items down onto your grid paper. The reason why we use repositionable adhesive is because, again, we want to just cover those grid lines without going over. In case you make a mistake when you put your element down initially, whether it's your photograph or it's your one of your cardstock elements, you can use this repositionable adhesive. It allows you to pick the element back up without either destroying your grid paper or your element and place it back down where it's supposed to. The other nice luxury of repositionable adhesive is that it becomes permanent over time. So I won't need to apply any additional adhesive. I won't need to do anything else. It will be permanently stuck, I say, in about 24 hours. So it's a really great tool to use. All right, we've got our 30 degrees die. This is the actual die and what it looks like. So it's a little bit bigger of one of our dies. I like the die because as you work with your page, you can either do a page that kind of looks like this, where you're using 8 beautiful different photos, or I'll show you the sneak peek of our companion page now. This is our companion page that goes with it. Same die set, still 30 degrees, but what we've done here is we've rearranged it a little bit differently in such a way that you have 4 larger photos that you're featuring now. And when I say 4 larger photos, if you hold up like a 4x6 photo, this is almost the entire use of the 4x6 photo. So I like this particular companion layout if you've got 4 larger photos where you want to focus on your subjects. And I like this one where if maybe your subjects are a little bit farther away, you can actually get 8 photos on this page. So 2 beautiful layouts. I think when you feature them beside each other, you almost can't tell they're the same die because they're just used in such different ways. But we're going to focus on this page today. So I'll put the companion page away for just a second here. And I'm going to show you what I've started with. So I did tell you at the beginning that we're going to start with our blank piece of grid paper, which I've got here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this top left-hand rectangle, but I'm going to show you that I've already done some cutting for some other things here. So I've got my bottom left rectangle already cut, and I've got the outline cut, and I've got it already mounted onto one of my mounting rectangles that I'll talk about in just a second. And then you're also going to see that I already did my bottom right rectangle and my top left rectangle. They're already done. Just again, for sake of time, we had to do those a little bit quicker. But what I'm going to do, like I said, is focus on this top left-hand one and walk you through our 3-step process on how to work with the 30 degrees die. All right, so let me bring my machine up. What I do is I divide into 3 steps in how to cut with 30 degrees or any of our dies where we have outlines. And what I do is I say that step 1 is you're going to want to cut your outline. So your outline here is going to be this black outline or black frame. This is not in the background. It's actually a cut piece from black cardstock that you're going to do. So you'll want to have your black cardstock out. And so step 1 is we're going to cut this black frame. After we cut the black frame, step 2 is we're going to cut our coordinating or pattern cardstock that's going to go inside that frame. So in this case, we're going to cut the aqua blue, and we're going to cut the green strip pieces here that go in the frame. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is we're going to cut our photos. So step 1 is outline, step 2 is coordinating cardstock, and step 3 is photos. Now what you're going to see is if you follow this step 1, step 2, step 3, for all of the 4 rectangles that are on the page here that I just showed on the camera, if you follow them for all 4 of the rectangles, you're going to have completed this layout. So even though it might look a little bit complicated as you're cutting or as you're kind of looking at it, once you get started cutting, if you focus on one rectangle at a time and go step 1, I'm cutting my outline, step 2, I'm cutting my coordinating cardstock, and step 3, I'm cutting my photos, it makes it actually quite simple. So let's go ahead and follow that path here. What we're going to do is we're going to do our cutting here, and we're going to cut all of our cardstock first. So the first thing I'm going to do is put my piece of black cardstock down onto my cutting surface, and I'm going to put my 30 degrees die down. And I've have it at a little bit of an angle here just so it goes through the machine better. I'm going to put my top plate through, and now I'm going to run it through my machine. So essentially with your cardstock, with your black, with your aqua, and with your green, you're essentially running this through, running the 30 degrees die through 3 times. With the black cardstock here, and I just have some pieces that are coming out here, so let me get those pieces out, and then I'll show you the camera of what my final product looks like. All right, so what I've got here is I've got my frame. And remember how I said that frame or that outline is step 1. That's the first thing that we need to cut with our machine. And then what I'm going to do, like I said, is I'm going to cut all of my cardstock. So the next thing that I'm going to cut is I'm going to cut my green and my blue cardstock to go onto my page. So you'll see here I'm loading my piece of green cardstock on. I'm going to place my 30 degrees die on top. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get these green strips that are here. So same procedure that I did for the black outline. I'm just going to place the 30 degree die on my cardstock, run it through my machine. And now when I pull it out, I'm going to be looking for 2 specific pieces, and you're going to see how it kind of cut out here. I'm looking for this piece here, which is one of my strip pieces that I need to fill in my design, and I'm looking for this second strip piece. Everything else is scrap, but I'm going to hold it to the side, and the reason why is because I will be able to use those elements later to make another page or to complete one of the other portions of my rectangle. So give me just 1 second here. I just need to get my frame out of my die. So like that piece is going to be separate. We'll use that for another layout some other time. And then finally, I'm going to do my blue cardstock. So all we've done now, I might have seemed like I've gone really fast here, but all I've done is I've used my 30 degrees die 3 times on my black, my limeade, and my black, my green, which is limeade, and my blue or Aruba or aqua cardstock, and I've run it through my machine. So that's all I've done right here. Same thing with the Aruba. I'm looking for the 2 triangles at the top. So I've got triangle number 1, and I've got triangle number 2. And then again, these other pieces we're just going to put to the side, probably use them later for another rectangle or another area. So let me just clear out my die here. So what we've essentially done here is we've done our step 1 and step 2 of that 3-step system that I'm talking about. We did our outline, which was the black outline. And now we've cut our green and our blue pieces, which is our coordinating cardstock. That's step 1 and step 2. Before I cut my photos, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get my rectangle ready for my photos. So now what I've done here to kind of work with this is this frame. If you've ever cut with Mosaic Moments dies before, this frame is relatively sturdy, but when you put it onto your grid line, onto your grid paper again, you want to make sure that it not only lines up to your grid lines, but that it doesn't warp. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that it doesn't go outside of the grid lines or, you know, in this area down here, or it's not too big or bulging or kind of have shrunken up in that rectangle. What I recommend is if you own our basic dies, specifically our die set B, which is the purple die set, I recommend that you use the larger or the largest purple die here and cut yourself a rectangle. This can be out of any any cardstock that you'd like. It should be on cardstock, but it could be out of anything. It could be out of a scrap piece of paper, white, black, orange, yellow, green, it doesn't matter. You're going to completely hide it. But what this is going to do is when you are working on your layout, you're actually going to build your page, or you're going to build your 30 degrees die piece on top of this. So when I put all of my elements inside here, I'm actually building it on top of this white rectangle. And the reason why I'm doing that is it just gives it a little bit more stability. So what you're going to see is you could absolutely take your outline that you've cut, you could absolutely glue it down right onto the grid paper, and that's perfectly acceptable and fine. You just want to make sure everything is straight and lined up. But again, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to glue it onto my matting piece. We're going to completely cover this white matting piece, but it's just meant so that I know that everything is aligned with this die, because the die was cut, the white rectangle was cut with a 4x6 die, which is the same size as the 30 degrees die, so that I know that everything is going to be perfectly measured when I go to put it down on my grid paper. All right, so I am going to bring out my sticky specs, and like I had mentioned before, my sticky specs, I've already cut the sheet in half. It came as a full sheet, I cut it in half, and I placed staples, 3 staples down the left-hand side, because I'm right-handed. I've also put a little bit of, I just made it out of scrap paper, a little bit of a finger pull here, because I found that's easier to be able to grab the finger pull, to be able to grab the clear plastic, to be able to pull it back, and then the staples stop me from actually removing the plastic the whole way. So I found that's the easiest way to use the sticky specs. What you do with sticky specs is you pull the clear plastic back, you put the black outline frame or your element down onto the yellow, face down onto the yellow, and then you close the plastic and you rub. You don't burnish. Don't rub really hard. It's just a really light rub across the entire object, because what you're trying to do is on the yellow there is micro adhesive, very, very small dots. You are transferring those very, very small dots onto the back of the black outline or to the element that you've put down on your sticky specs. So you don't need to burnish real hard. If you do, your element's going to get stuck onto the yellow, and that's not what you want here. When you're done rubbing, you simply pull the plastic back again, and that's again where this good grab handle comes from, and you very carefully remove the element that you had put down onto your sticky specs, just like that. Now I know in the camera it's not going to be easy to see, but there are little bits of adhesive on the back of my entire element, and what that's going to do then is it's going to allow me to stick it down onto my white rectangle. And again, I'm using this white rectangle for support, and because it's cut to the same size as my die, I know that if I put my outline around the exact outside of my white rectangle, it will be the exact size that I need it to be. So I've got it laid down now. It's along the outside of my white rectangle, and I'm just going to press it down to make sure it's down firmly. The nice thing about these sticky specs is as long as you don't press down, they are repositionable. So if you stick it down initially and it's kind of just hanging there and it's not in the right area, if you pull it back up carefully, it is repositionable and you can reposition it. So I've got my outline down onto my white background, and what's going to happen is this white background is just simply going to glue right down onto my grid paper like this into the 4x6 squares that are left here in the top left-hand corner. So that's step one. Completed that, I'm good to go with that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to place my elements that I've already pre-cut, my blue triangles and my green strips. I'm going to glue those down. I'm going to put adhesive on the back of them if I can pick them up off my layout here. I'm going to glue those down and I'm going to place them into my rectangle, into where my 30 degrees die is. Let me grab my adhesive, it's over here. And that's going to complete my step two. So you can see step one was doing the outline, which we've done. It's the larger triangle here. So step one was doing the outline. Step two is going to be doing these coordinating cardstock pieces. And then step three finally is going to be adding our photos. And I'll be able to show you how we cut our photos and added those to our layout. So there's the blue down already. I'm just gluing down the green strips now, adding adhesive to those. And again, because everything is being cut with your die, you know everything measures exactly. So everything is just fitting right inside this black outline. I'm not having to do anything special. Everything's just fitting perfectly there. And then finally, I've got my fourth element, which is another thin green strip here. I'm just placing adhesive onto it. And I'm going to fit that right into that black outline. Okay, so you can see here we're finished with step two now. Step one, black outline. Step two, coordinating cardstock. The only thing that we need to do is we need to add our two photos. We need to cut our photos and we need to add our photos here. And what that's going to do is that's going to complete 1/4 of our page, and you're simply going to need to repeat that for the other 3 rectangles, just like I've done here. So these are 2 completed rectangles that I've already done. I did those before our Facebook Live started. This is one I've kind of gotten started. You can see I did step 1. I cut the outline. And the reason why I didn't have step 2 done is because I was waiting for the cut pieces for my coordinating cardstock from cutting this top rectangle. I was waiting to cut those pieces when I cut the pieces for the top. So now I can just add those. These are just the remaining pieces that I had from when I cut the pieces for up here. So I'm just going to add these quickly to my layout so that you can see those. And then we're going to move on and we're going to cut our photos. And that's going to finish up that 3-step process that I talked about. And you'll just repeat that for the remainder of your page. So step 1 is outline, step 2 is photo, and step 3 is, step 1 is outline, step 2 is coordinating cardstock, and step 3 is photos. So you can see I've added my coordinating cardstock now to my bottom as well, so I just need to cut my photographs. Let's bring the machine back up again, and we're going to cut the 2 photos that go in the top left-hand corner here. All right. So the nice thing, if you've never worked with our Mosaic Moments dies before, is we not only cut our cardstock and our outlines with our dies, but we also cut our photos with our dies. So there is no fussy cutting or anything else like that that you have to do. It's just there's no outlining, tracing, stenciling. Everything's done with our dies. Now, what you need to pay particular attention to when you're working with the 30 degrees die and you're adding to your page is just that you're adding the photo or you're cutting the photo in the orientation that you want to add it. because theoretically there's 4 different orientations. There's this way, you can turn it 90 degrees, you can turn it 180 degrees, you can turn it 270, but so you just want to make sure by lining it back up onto your paper and then putting it on top of your photo that you're cutting exactly where you need to be. So in this case, what I'm trying to cut is I'm trying to cut this big area here, kind of looks like a little bit of a mountain. I'm trying to cut that area here, and I've got my photograph selected. I've got my subject kind of in the center here. And what you want to do is, first of all, make sure it's oriented in the right position. I don't care about any of this other area here. I'm only worried about this little area here. Move up on the camera a little bit. Got my subject centered, and I know that I'm going to cut around the full perimeter because I can't see any pieces, I can't see that I've run off my photo or anything with my die. I'm going to cut that full area like I need to. So I'm going to put my top plate down, start running it through my machine. And that noise is normal, that kind of crunchy noise is normal. Pull it off. And so what I have here now is I have the exact piece that I need that's going to go into my layout. And you can see how the rest of it cut. I'm going to clear out my die real quick. And I'm going to cut my second photo. My second photo is the girl running in the water ride. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. Look at my layout, know that I need this area here, and know that I want it centered on my subject. So place it there. Maybe I'm going to move it a little bit over. I'm going to put it at a little bit of an angle, which is fine. You can kind of decide this as you're kind of working, because I want to get a little bit more of her in the image. Again, I'm trying to make sure that I stay on the photograph, because I care about this little area here. So it looks like I've got that the way I want it. I'm going to place my top plate on, run it through my machine. And you can see with just 2 passes of the die through the Big Shot machine, you've actually cut your photos that you need. So as you're working through your photos, you'll do that 3-step process. So we've just done step 3. We've cut our 2 photos for our rectangle. You'll follow that 3-step process, and you'll do it 3 more times to complete your other 3 rectangles. So let's bring the machine back down here, and let's glue my photos into place. So we've got photograph number 1 here that we've done. I'm going to just apply adhesive on the back of that. And again, this is that repositionable adhesive from Scrapbook Adhesive by 3L. Just apply that. And then I'm going to glue it into my rectangle. And again, because everything was cut with the dies, everything fits perfectly here. So I've got number 1 done. And then I'm going to take my second photo, applying adhesive onto that now, and I'm going to sit that one right inside the remaining area, and that's added now. So what we've done is we've completed our rectangle. We've done it step 1, cutting the outline, step 2, cutting the coordinating cardstock for the blue and the green, and step 3, cutting our photo and adding it within those outline shapes, and we've got a completed rectangle. Simply put, you're just going to do it for the next 3 rectangles. So I would cut my photos here to complete this rectangle, and then I would move myself around the page, outline, coordinating cardstock, photos, and that's going to go ahead and complete the 4 main elements of your page. And then the only thing that you're going to have left is this little 2x2 square in the middle. And what I did here is I took a postcard that I had from the water park, and I cut it out and just added it onto a 2 square by 2 square square piece that I cut out of my limeade cardstock and mounted that for the middle of the page. So that's how I completed that. But whether you're working on this page or you're working on our companion page that you see here, they're all made the same way. It's that same 3-step process. Step 1, outline. Step 2, coordinating cardstock. Step 3, photos. And the only thing that you need to pay more attention to on this page is just how you cut your photos to be able to separate them between the 2 pieces, like over here on this right-hand rectangle and over here on the left-hand rectangle. But it's done that same exact way. So I hope through this demonstration you are able to see looks like it might be a very sophisticated or time-consuming layout, but if you follow that simple step 1, step 2, step 3 system, you'll be able to complete this page. All right, so let us talk about a couple of other things. I wanted to give you an idea, if you're interested in shopping with us, of some of the sales and promotions that we have. So on your screen, I've put up our volume event specials for today. So you'll want to visit craftysituation.com to shop. And if you use coupon code AUGFUN, A-U-G for August, A-U-G FUN, F-U-N, AUGFUN, you're going to receive 25% off your entire regular price purchase of dies, tools, and adhesives. So dies, tools, and adhesives are going to be 25% off. You'll also want to check out our Criss Cross 2x3 Craft Along Crafty Box. We're going to be doing that for our next Facebook Live event, which is going to be on September 11th. We'll have an hour for that event, so I'll show you what that looks like here. We'll have an hour for that event, so we'll be able to walk through the page a little bit slower of pace than what we had to today, but this is the page we're making for that event, and we're going to be using our Criss Cross 2x3 and 3x5 dies. So that's going to be on sale on our website now. It's on our homepage. And of course, you do get free shipping for all of your orders over $75. So I will post the sale ad back up in just a second again, but I wanted to come on screen again and say thank you for joining us for our 30 Degrees Mosaic Moments in a Crafty Situation volume presentation. I know I went through a lot of information in just a very short amount of time, but just remember that this entire presentation is recorded. It's going to be posted to the Facebook group, to the Volume Facebook group, so you can start and stop and rewind and fast forward and things like that as many times as you need. But just remember to follow that simple 3-step process of cutting your outline first, and then cutting your coordinating cardstock, and then cutting your photos. For the 30 Degrees page that you did, we will repeat that 4 times for each of the 4 rectangles, and you're going to have a completed page. So if you have any questions, we'll stay on chat for a few moments longer here. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to us by Facebook or by email. I'll post our sale ads again as I say goodbye, but thank you for joining us for our Volume Facebook Live event. Thank you to Great Lakes Mega Meat for sponsoring this, and to Kate Griswold for all that she does. If you're going to be in the Novi area in October, we hope to see you for the actual in-person event, for the Great Lakes Mega Meat in-person event from October 7th to the 9th. We will be there with our whole booth full of Mosaic Moments goodness, and we can't wait to see you then. Thank you so much.